Hey guys, Dan here, and it's Tim over Zoom. Hey Tim,
Hi, everybody.
it is time once again for Dan Does Disney. And Tim, you found this one on YouTube. This is one of our not Disney Plus entries again.
Yeah, it's not on Disney Plus and it's not available to rent on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, that part is weird. I don't know if we've had any that we couldn't rent. Maybe that first one a long time ago, the Victory Through Air Power.
Yeah, that probably wasn't available.
But most of these other ones, even if they're not on Disney Plus or if they're very obscure, they're still available to rent. I don't know what the story with this one is. We learned there is a DVD that exists that must be from the Disney Movie Club, but some kind soul uploaded it to YouTube for us to all to watch.
Yeah, like 2 years ago.
Yeah, so I'm going to, in the description of this video, I will put the link to that YouTube video. So, if you all want to watch the video before or after our review, you can go ahead and do that. This is a weird one, Tim, for many, many reasons. But first of all, there is not a lot of background to be found on this. Most of the background I found was more fact-based about the actual people and events than it was about the making of the movie.
Okay.
So, and on IMDb, I know you usually look there. It was a lot of like the real person did this and said that, okay, well, whatever. So here's what I know about this. This is released on March 29th of 1963. It earned about $2.5 million domestically. Like a lot of these more obscure movies, I don't have any kind of budget for it. So I don't know if that was a success for them or not. But Walt Disney was an avid horseman and polo player before he had some younger injuries that kept him from continuing with it. But so that sort of drew him into the horse story, and he was interested in the World War II horses because of that. So this is a very, very adult movie for Disney. Not only, and we've been talking about this for the last 6 or 7 movies, Tim, with the more adult leaning stuff with Bon Voyage and what was it, The Moon Pilot?
Yeah.
But this is like quite adult to the point that there's not even like children in the movie. Even when there's an adult movie, there's usually like a Tommy Kirk or something like for some comic relief or what have you.
Yeah, this is historical drama.
Yeah, historical drama, certainly a first for the Disney Corporation. And critics at the time were not fans. Let's see. I wrote down a couple of the things that they said. They called it a dull movie that would only interest horse lovers. The acting is cold. The movie is visually uninteresting, and the only redeeming quality was the horses themselves. So we'll see how we feel about it in 2022. But those were some of the reviews at the time. So not a big hit, I guess, and I can see why people expecting, I think, something very, very different. So major parts of the movie were actually shot at this palace, the Erme Villa Palace in the Landseer Tiergarten of Vienna, which was a former hunting area. And the equestrian performances were choreographed by the real dude that is the main focal point of the movie. When we get to Tim, he's going to tell us all about the actors and the parts. But the guy who is the story is about, the movie is about this guy. He was on hand to choreograph all the equestrian performances, and he appears at the end in a gala performance as well. They got the Sherman Brothers to write a tune. We've learned many, many songs from the Sherman Brothers over the Dan Does Disney here. There's one song towards the beginning called Just Say Auf Wiedersehen, and that is sung by Eddie Albert, who plays Otto, one of the Nazi officers. And that's really all I've got. I mean, I couldn't find too much more about the making of this movie. But Tim, let's hear about the plot and some of the people involved.
Well, I don't know if he was really a Nazi officer. I would say he's more of this riding school that took control, that was taken control by the Nazis. So they had
Well, it did say the humane Nazi officer. So I guess that means yes, he was. I guess that means he was a Nazi, but he was forced into it or what have you.
Yeah, because even the main guy, the Colonel Alois Pajatsky, he was an Austrian that then when the Germans invaded, they became part of the Nazi army, but they just took care of the horses, like at this riding school.
Yeah,
So,
he wanted the horses to survive, and unwillingly for the Germans, of course. But yeah, I mean, obviously, we're not going to make a movie where the hero is a big Nazi in the 1960s. That doesn't seem to gel. So no, yeah, they're all Nazis, but unwillingly so, I guess.
yeah, at one point in the movie, they burn their uniforms. I mean, they
yeah, that was a solid part.
Yeah. So this is based on I don't know if it's a book, a short story, or something. It did not tell me, but it's based on the Dancing White Horses of Vienna, and that was written by Colonel Alois Pajatsky, who is this main guy. And this movie takes place in 1945, so that's the tail end of World War II, and it tells the true story of Colonel Alois Pajatsky, who wants to save the famous Lippenzahner horses of.
There's some hard words today, Tim, with the German.
Of the Spanish riding school in Vienna, Austria. They're like these famous all-white horses. And so Pajatsky must first flee the riding school and escape the bombing from the approaching Soviet troops, and in hopes of possibly surrendering to more lenient allies of the American troops as they approach as well. And he wants to surrender to them instead, and then he must convince U.S. General Patton to safeguard the horses and also stage a rescue on the mare horses, which are in Czechoslovakia. Maybe putting on a show is the answer. And
it usually is with Disney.
Yes, but apparently this actually happened, so it's not super Disneyfied. The one difference that I read about it was that in the movie, one of the guys is like, "Hey, Patton really likes horses," which is true. Patton really liked horses. He actually rode in, I think, like the Olympics or maybe Olympic qualifiers or something, like in equestrian prior to the wars, and he finished like 20 something. And in the movie, they're like, "Oh, he likes horses. If you put on a show, maybe he'll want to save the horses." No, he came and visited, and he requested the show. That's the big difference. So
there's also a difference with the uniforms. That's the only other thing I really read was that they use these red uniforms at the end, but they had these brown uniforms in real life, and Disney thought they looked sort of too ugly, to be to be eye popping. So much like in the Wizard of Oz when they changed the silver slippers to ruby, they went with the red uniforms for this. Apparently, they don't exist.
Yeah, but I mean, Disney just did that like a couple movies ago with the Boys Choir of Vienna. He was like, "Oh, how about we put this eagle crest on them?" And they're like, "Okay, yeah." And then they kept them. I guess they didn't keep the red uniforms in this one, as far as trivia tells us. So the cast we have here, we have Robert Taylor. He plays Pajatsky. A
lot of new people here.
So Robert Taylor doesn't do any more Disney stuff. He does have 79 acting credits to his name on IMDb. The first one that says that he's known for is The Bribe, which I've never heard of. The most interesting thing I found out about him is that he was married to Barbara Stanwyck for about 13 years, and she's 4-time Oscar nominated. Barbara Stanwyck.
And on the marquee in Back to the Future when he goes back to the 50s.
Yeah.
That's how I know her.
Yeah. Then we have Lily Palmer. She plays his wife, Vadina. She has 104 acting credits to her name. What she's known for is Anastasia, a live action one in 56. She was BAFTA nominated for that role of Anastasia. Um, and she doesn't do anything else Disney wise, but she has a long acting career. We have Eddie Albert. He plays Otto, which is the good Nazi, I guess, in the thing.
Yeah, he's the one.
He's the one. He does one other Disney movie that's Escape to Witch Mountain in 75. He also does a Magical World of Disney sequel called Beyond Witch Mountain in 82. He has like 204 acting roles, so he might have something else Disney that I just kind of overlooked.
No, I don't believe so. I think those are the only Disneys.
Okay. And then you probably know him for his 170 episodes of Green Acres.
Yes, I've been watching Green Acres for months, and I'm almost actually done the series. But yes, he's most famous for that. But what's interesting is I didn't realize that it's like a Leslie Nielsen type thing. Like before Green Acres, which is a very, very like silly slapstick type comedy, he has all of these very, very serious movie roles.
Yeah. He was also in Robin Holiday. That's probably his best movie role. Then we have James Franciscus. He plays Major Hoffman, who is a major player in the rescue of the mare horses in Czechoslovakia. His role is kind of diminished in the movie a little bit, but he did play a major role in saving the horses and the prisoners of war that were being held. He has 77 acting credits. He's most famous for he's in Beneath the Planet of the Apes in 70. I'm not sure which Planet of the Apes sequels that is. I don't know. 3, 5. I don't know.
I'm not sure. What year? 73 is probably the third or fourth, maybe. Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I don't know that.
And then we have John Larch. He plays Patton. And he has 172 acting credits. Most famously, he's in Dirty Harry. He's in Airplane 2, the sequel. He's in Play Misty for Me. Those are the 3 things that he's most known for. So most of these players are not Disney veterans or returning Disney people. The only one we have is Eddie Albert in 75.
Same with the Young Boys Vienna Choir. I think maybe there was like 1 or 2 people in that we've seen before or that we will see later. But I wonder what maybe because they were filming on location in Austria that they just weren't. I don't know.
No, I think a couple of the boys we'll see them in the 3 Lives of Thomasania or whatever that is.
Okay.
And then one of the adults as well. So that has a few more than this, but yes, they're like in one movie and another movie, where Eddie Albert is in this movie and one other movie.
Yeah.
But it might be because they're filming in Vienna and they couldn't get the Disney regulars out there or something like that. But I mean, that review of saying the acting was bad, I don't think the acting was that bad. I thought most of the people did a really good job.
I actually thought the acting was one of the better parts of the film.
Yeah. I thought the wife, Lily Palmer, she did a great job. I thought she was kind of like the heart and soul of the movie. And sent into Podotsky all the time. I mean, he really cared about the horses so much that like sometimes he needed her to like be like, hey, slow down. Sometimes it takes some time to get things going and stuff like that. So I thought she was like the heart of the movie a little bit. And then the director, it's Arthur Hiller. He directs a lot of movies. Most famously, Love Story in 70. He was nominated for Best Director for that. Some of the other ones that I saw, See No Evil, Out of Towners, The Babe with John Goodman.
Oh, John Goodman. Love that movie.
And then he directed one movie in 2006 called I think that was National Lampoon's Pucked, which I'd never heard of. But
I saw that. John Bon Jovi stars in it.
Oh,
that's one of his starring roles. But he also did the Bette Midler movie Outrageous Fortune in the 80s, which I think was for Buena Vista.
Yeah. Carpool, which is that Tom Arnold movie in 96, he directed that as well.
Oh God.
Yeah,
All
that
right.
was one.
He got into some really lame comedies in his later years.
Yeah, but I mean, he had a good acting directing career. But I think that this is his only Disney movie.
Okay, interesting.
Um, yeah. I thought one of the best parts of this, besides the acting, was some of his choices for camera work. There was a lot of moving shots that were done really well. Like
Hmm.
the song that you mentioned that Eddie Albert sings, they had like this smooth dolly into a zoom, and it was great. In the final horse performance, they had like this pan over to the mirror, and then we saw the mirror images. Like some of it was really done well. I understand why like this guy got Oscar nominated for directing later on in his career.
Yeah, and it's funny. I don't know if maybe the negative reviews sort of shied Walt away from using him again, or maybe he didn't have a good experience working on the movie, so he didn't want to do another Disney. I don't know, but or maybe the shots were more complicated, than other things Disney needed. But yeah, I mean, this to me is one of the more like I don't know daring cinematographies that we've seen aside from like the mountain what was the mountain climber movie where like scenery was kind of the name of the game. um but yeah, I thought there was definitely some interesting shots here for sure.
Like I don't know if I've seen many Disney, like I don't remember many Disney movies with like dolly shots and like panning type of shots as well. Like even like they would like interchange or like, okay, here's a standing shot. Like it's just like, okay, a cut to him, but then they would cut to another thing and then you would follow her in the argument type of thing. I thought it was really done well.
Well, and you can kind of tell too that it's not the Disney regulars working on it because there's like no matte paintings. There's no, of a lot of the standard stuff that we've been seeing in these early '60s movies.
Yeah. And I don't think they had much of a budget for this.
Mm-mm.
Like the one kind of action shootout, like you could tell that he kind of had to use certain camera tricks to kind of like close up shots of the fighting and stuff like that. Because I don't think he had a big budget, but I think he did with the best that he could with that. And then I also thought there were some cool uses of the green screen that he used that I thought were really good green screen for the time of like they're in a vehicle and it's moving and you can tell it's green screen but barely. I felt like and just the way they did that where it's like, oh, you have like close up shoulders of the gunners and stuff like that and they're going down streets and stuff like that. I thought that was done really well as well.
Yeah, definitely less so than some of the other ones we've seen where the green screen is like really bad or
So
very obvious. Yeah, I think this looked pretty good.
yeah, I thought this one was probably the best green screen we've seen um thus far.
Yeah, that's probably true. I mean, maybe some of the black and white ones, but I feel like that's more practical effects than just green screen kind of stuff.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
there's probably a couple driving shots in the Nutty Professor movies.
that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Absolute Nutty Professor. That like since it's in black and white, and it's like kind of like a close up of him driving the car. Like it's hard to tell, but like you're like, okay, that's green screen probably, but that's probably like the only other one.
Yeah, that's definitely the one, the main one I was thinking of. But all right, so you mentioned the action scene. Let's go back to that for a second. There is really only one. This is almost a 2-hour movie. This is one of the longer ones we've seen lately, and yeah, there's literally one action sequence pretty much in the whole movie. I mean, unless I guess you count the big gala with the horses as sort of that's sort of action in the sense that stuff's going
There
on, but
was an early bombing scene, but not much.
that yeah, it didn't last very long. And yeah, I don't know. I kept sort of wondering uh when this came out, maybe the reason it was so ill received by the critics is because nobody knew like what to do with it. Like I kept thinking like, okay, well, first of all, it's not that long in the past. I mean, this event happening is closer to the time of release than if we did a movie about 9/11 now. I mean, it was less than 20 years after the thing had happened. So it was, still fairly fresh, but it made me think of like, okay, at the time, Disney was definitely trying to be a little more adult, move sort of in that direction, but mostly his quote unquote adult movies were more about like more body jokes and like more kind of sex comedies, especially like Bon Voyage and stuff. Then, I mean, this is adult in theme and nature and realism and all of that kind of stuff. And it made me think like it would be like if Nickelodeon in the 90s did like a movie about Vietnam or something. Like it just, to me, if I was the moviegoer in 63 and this came right after the sequel to The Absent-Minded Professor, nowadays studios could do whatever they want, every kind of movie. But the Disney name was synonymous with like kid fair and family friendly. And I just think maybe this could have been farmed out to a different studio or something. It just didn't, for me, match with anything that we've been watching.
Yeah, if they had Touchstone at the time, this would be on Touchstone. But
Touchstone or Miramax or something like that.
Have that. And it kind of was jarring when I first watched it, and like it came on, and like one of the first thing you see is the Nazi flag, and you're like, whoa, wait,
yeah.
I'm like, and I'm trying to think, I'm like, Disney's doing a movie about Nazi Germany, like, or not Nazi Austria, like,
yeah.
And then like I'm like, is this the only Disney movie with Nazis? And then I kind of thought about it more. I'm like, well, I guess they have the Captain America movies on Disney Plus, and that involves Nazis.
I guess, but that's A, more modern day, B, the comic booky. And this one obviously isn't on Disney Plus. So this is one of the few where I can say I totally understand why this is not on Disney Plus.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't think there would be a lot of interest there. What surprises me is that it's not for rent on Amazon.
Yeah, I think that's probably just because they kind of feel like the audience wasn't there in 60. Are we in 63?
3, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if the audience is there today.
I would say it's definitely not there today. I did not. I don't want to say it's not a good movie because, like we said, the acting and the directing is very good. The horse sequence at the end is a lot of fun. I think it goes on way too long, but I'm not a horse person, so okay, fine. But this was also 2 years before The Sound of Music. Like when I think of Nazis in movies, that's sort of my go-to. I know you've not seen it, but it's about the Nazis and everything. So I just feel like the timing probably was not right. They had yet to do anything even remotely this adult. And I thought it was in parts quite boring.
I will say that it's a little boring. I think it's a little long. I didn't mind the horses at the end because that was interesting to see because they were doing complicated dance moves or whatever. But the one thing I did mind was all the horses in the beginning. Over the opening credits, which is probably about 5 to 6 minutes, because the opening credits have to have everything that the ending credits would have these days. Right. And that's all they had was like a little voiceover and then all these horses. And you're like,
by the way, who was the voiceover? Because it wasn't him, I don't think.
No, I think it was. I think it was.
Okay.
I think it was Robert Towner.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I didn't think the first voiceover was him. But then after listening to him talk all movie, the last voiceover definitely was him in my mind.
Okay, so I guess it probably was.
the one
I was
thing
gonna.
I say is that I thought I didn't know about this historical event from World War II. I thought it was very interesting. I was entertained by learning new knowledge. And I think that there is one audience for this, and that is kind of like history buffs. Like if you're into history and World War II, type of like unknown history facts, I don't think this is a well-known thing in my mind. That I think.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And actually, I felt the same. And I defend this movie probably more than most people, but I felt the same way about the Monuments Men. Like that was a little bit more lighthearted, but I didn't know that portion of the war and the the art, saving the art and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I feel like Monument Men kind of knew what they had and were like, well, we have to kind of force a few little jokey things in here. Where this did not force any jokey things in there. Maybe a
None.
couple the American soldiers' comments were kind of supposed to be that way, but they kind of fell flat. So I do think there's a very small audience for this. And maybe another audience would be people who really like good cinematography and some good acting. So I think there's slight audiences for this, but I don't think it was a horrible movie. I just think it was a little slow and a little boring.
Yeah. I'm with you on all of that. And apparently there is a book that came out within the last 2 years. I think it was from 2018, about this subject as well. I think it was called The Ghost Riders. Let me see if I can find that. Yeah, Ghost Riders. Okay, and that's from 2018. So yeah, people that are entranced by this film and want to learn even more about what happened. But yeah, I agree. Like my dad, I feel like would like this movie. He taught history. His specifically loves World War II history. So I think somebody like him. But the thing is, and this maybe hurt them at the box office. Like my dad, if he saw, the Disney name on it, would be like, oh, well, they're going to either be telling jokes or having little fairies fly around or whatever, and avoid it completely. Now, I can't speak for the critics that saw it at the time and said the acting was bad, because I didn't feel that about it. But
and then horse lovers would probably like this movie as well. So horse lovers and history buffs.
But for the horse lovers, I think you could just watch the last 20 minutes and be okay with that.
Probably. The one thing we didn't talk about is that there was a comic book by Gold Key that they released a comic book. It's a different.
I wish there were reprints of these comics, Tim.
Yeah, because I think if avid Dan Does Disney followers will know that, like, I don't know, probably 8 movies ago, it was like, oh, this is the last comic book tie-in from that specific company that was doing them. Like every movie had a comic book tie-in. Gold Key was not them. I forget what the other one was. This is a different comic book adaptation company.
Yeah, the four color comics or 4-color strips or something. I forget
what it was.
Yeah, but yeah, this. I mean, I don't know. I mean, a comic book about this movie. Come on now.
Hey, you had to teach these kids about the.
I guess so. Well, and they did. They ended up running this on the Disneyland TV show in the mid 60s. And I don't know if half the time Walt was just like, well, I don't want to spend money on making something new, so we'll just put one of our movies that people didn't want to pay for in the theater. But obviously they thought it would get good enough ratings that they ran it on the TV show.
I do think that it was, I would say, made them money, because I don't think they spent much money on this. And how much did you say it made? 2.3?
About 2.5 mil.
I think that's pretty good for 63. So I would say this is a moderate success. And in the IMDb trivia, it said that because of this movie, it did encourage people to, I think, renovate one of the locations that they use. I think the place that they use for the refugee place where they had like the.
Yeah, I think it's at that first place I mentioned, the Erme Villa or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it did encourage some people to want to fix some stuff up about in Vienna. So I guess some people enjoyed this movie.
Well, if nothing else, we did learn about a whole new thing that we never heard of before.
Yeah.
About the horses. But we know it's too long.
Yes.
And we know that it's boring in many parts. I just would have liked, maybe, if this is so for adults, I would have liked one or two more action sequences. You could be very, very right that the budget just wasn't there. They did with what they could. But I don't know. You're Disney. Throw another $500,000 at it.
Yeah, I think where they could have used a little bit more. I think that the ending sequences is kind of paced out well. You have the big action thing. You end with the horses thing. It's more the beginning slowness where like when they're rescuing the horses in the beginning, there's like some bombing and stuff like that. And in the IMDb trivia, it did say that like it was a lot harder to get these horses out of Vienna to the villa, and there was more air raids and other things like that. I think focusing a little bit more on that than like the time in the middle where like you're waiting for the American troops to show up. I guess that's a lot of character development in there, and you had definitely good acting in there, but I think they focused a little bit more on rescuing the horses in the beginning section. I think it would have helped the pacing.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like if a horse lover is going to watch this, I think they will be bored to tears in the middle, like hour and 20 minutes of the movie. There's like one or two scenes in the middle that are cool with the horses, but yeah, it's more the beginning and the end. Did you get Tarantino flashbacks from the beginning with the horses?
Yes.
Okay. We know. Those of you that don't know, Tim is what was that? Hateful Eight, right?
Hateful Eight.
Which is the horses running and running for like 10 minutes.
I didn't mind the first 10 minutes that they did it. It was in the middle section when they did it. I was like, I just rolled my eyes.
Yeah. But like you said, back in this day, they put all the credits up front. So at least they were doing credits as we saw.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. That's why I didn't mind the first 10 minutes of Hateful Eight, because they were doing that.
Right.
So, like, I don't think this is a horrible movie. I don't think it's a great movie. If I was just grading the movie on itself, I would probably put it smack dab in the middle of a C. But I'm going to give it a C+ because I like the acting and I like a lot of the cinematography, and I learned something new about history. So I will give it a little bit of bump grade.
I'll go with you on that. I was originally going to give it a C, but you did definitely point out some interesting camera angles and techniques. I don't think I've ever seen any of this guy's movies. I've never seen Love Story. I've never seen Man from La Mancha. I never saw Outrageous Fortune. So
did you see Out of Towners with Jack Lemmon?
No, I saw the remake with Goldie Hawn and Steve Martin.
And I think his career list, I forget what Steve Martin movie it was, but he did do a Steve Martin movie. I forget which one it was. Have you not seen See No Evil with Gene Wilder and
Richard Pryor? No, it was too R-rated and I was too little. Now my brother has seen it and he tells me how funny it is, but I've never seen it.
I've seen that, and I saw the great Tom Arnold Carpool. I saw that.
Well, I've never seen that, Tim. And I never saw National Lampoon Presents Bon Jovi. So, maybe I saw the Steve Martin one. I have seen a lot of his movies, but yeah, what's that?
It wasn't one that I remembered.
Okay, all right. It was probably one of the early ones. He did so many, like in the early '80s, that people don't know. But all right, but yeah, it definitely does make me intrigued about seeing more of this guy's movies, and I certainly did learn something. I'll go with you on the C+.
Yeah.
All right, so up next we have a good one, right?
Savage Sam.
Oh, that's right. I know it because it's the other sequel, the next sequel in line.
Yep, not on Disney Plus.
Not on Disney Plus, but I have the 2-disc combo with Old Yeller and Savage Sam, so we'll swap the discs back and forth. This one I have to imagine you could probably get on Amazon though too.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So all right, well that will do it for another Dan Does Disney. Tim, thank you so much for joining as always.
As always, a pleasure.
And we'll see everybody next time. Bye.
Bye, everybody.